Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another educational piece for Embers and Insights. I'm Chris.
And I'm Bobby.
And today we are going to drop a little knowledge for the beginner cigar smokers out there. We're going to go over proper etiquette for smoking cigars when you're a beginner. So first, why do you think cigar etiquette is important?
So I think cigar etiquette is important because you want to make sure if you're a new cigar smoker that you don't want to essentially affect your smoking experience negatively, and you don't want to affect the others around you negatively.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go as far as to say as most things, filming, sports, I think there is some sort of tradition that should be upheld a little bit. With the Yankees finally letting them grow their beards, that's nice. But there's just some, and in filmmaking, there's a lot of people who take inspiration from the past and make it twist it to make it themselves. But I think like there's certain traditions that should be upheld, and I think cigars is one of them. And what I mean by like traditions, it's like just showing the respect to the cigar, right? That might sound a little weird to some people, especially someone smoking out and some beginner cigar smokers. But there are certain things that we want to educate you on not to do, and then towards the end of the video we'll touch on proper cigar etiquette in cigar lounges. We're gonna go through about 7 or 8 items, right? Of like what's the proper etiquette. First one should be obvious, might not be to some people, but when you are smoking a cigar, you should use a lighter. And you should use a cutter. Do not cut your cigar with a blade or a knife, and do not light your cigar on like a Bunsen burner or like
you don't want to use the stove. Nope, no, none of that.
No, I know it might look cool when people light cigarettes on the stove, Samuel Jackson or whatever. But no, you want to use the proper tools.
Yes.
If you don't know how to use the proper tools, there's a bunch of videos on our channel, on our blog, showing you how to properly cut, light, and smoke a cigar. Right?
Yes.
All with this guy's face on it. But yeah, that's the first one. Just how to get it out of the way, because some people might want to snip it with a scissor, or I've seen people bite it off, like gnaw it off like a beaver.
Yeah, that's a no-go.
No, I know some people. I've noticed though a lot of, like I've seen Nick Melillo in Foundation. Mm-hmm. That's how he does it with. A lot of people do that with their cigars but they work in tobacco. They're probably used to it.
And I've seen people in factories as well. They use their fingertips to kind of just, a little pinch off the top of the cap. That's not going to affect and let it unravel. But these people have been doing this for many, many years. So
yeah,
they know what's going on.
You've been here 7 years. I've been here 6. I have never tried to like do that. If there's a pigtail on top, people say try that. Mm-hmm. But I got sausage fingers, big ass teeth. I'm gonna just ruin my cigar, right? So I'd rather like set myself up at the beginning for success when it comes to these cigars.
Yep, just stick to a cutter and keep it simple.
Yeah. What's the next for you?
Yeah, so the next is taking your time while you're smoking the cigar. So, if you're a cigarette smoker and you're used to smoking quickly, or if you have a thinner ring gauge cigar, some people tend to smoke those a bit quicker. But, smoking cigars is meant to be an enjoyable experience. You want to take your time while you're smoking. You don't want to rush through it.
What is it, like someone says you're supposed to take a 1 puff every minute?
Yeah, just about. They say that. You don't want to worry about letting your cigar go out. So you puff on it occasionally every minute. You don't want to smoke too fast because it'll affect the filler of the cigar, and it'll also affect the wrapper and just the burning process overall.
Really quickly, I saw a funny video of Larry David talking about how he has too much anxiety to smoke a cigar.
Oh, gosh.
He's like, I'm a very quick, cigarettes are perfect for me because I go outside, I used to go outside, take 5, 6 puffs, throw it out. You don't see anyone do that with a cigar.
No.
He's like, that's why cigars are meant to be enjoyed more. And it was a funny bit. I think he was on like Kimmel or Conan at the time. And I thought that was funny because it's true. Cigarette smokers are, and then they throw it out,
They get their fix and they're done.
And cigarette smokers may have a hard time smoking cigars because they're so used to inhaling but you don't inhale a cigar for one, but you don't, with a cigar, you do want to take your time. That's why you see some of the, a Robusto will take you 45 to 60 minutes to smoke. That should be Churchill's 2 hours.
Yep.
Because you're not trying to inhale it, right?
Of course.
We're not saying you have to smoke it down to the nub, but just give yourself the proper time to smoke it correctly, to avoid sickness, to avoid rushing through it, because these are not meant to be consumed in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah, and just to touch on your point about smoking it down to the nub, many people say that I've met in the industry is you smoke your cigar until it's not enjoyable anymore. That may be until it's down to a nub. That may be until it's halfway through. Most people recommend stopping up to the band.
Yep, I've heard that.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a famous blender who said like he never smoked past the band? I'd have to ask someone who told me that, but I thought like there was someone like a famous cigar smoker. He never smoked past the band, never took the band off, never did any of that.
I'm not sure who that may be, and I don't want to say the wrong name, so I won't do that. But I do notice a lot of people that I've met in the industry and just at factories, etc., that do smoke theirs typically down to the band.
Yeah.
It may just be because they have endless supply of cigars, so they can just relight them.
Probably it.
But when it gets down to past the band, it starts to get a little too hot on the palate, and you start to feel that burning on your tongue, and it's just not enjoyable anymore.
Yeah. The next piece of etiquette for beginners. This is important. Please, for the love of God. Sorry, can't even say it. Don't dip your cigars in anything.
No, that's
Hennessy,
a no-go.
Whiskey, beer, soda, coffee. Don't do it. Don't dip. Don't even think about dipping the foot of. No, that's the foot of the cigar. Wow, the top of the cigar where you're smoking.
Yep.
Do not dip either end in anything. Things you may not know as a beginner cigar smoker, most of these wrappers are aged at least 6 months to a year.
Yes.
For a reason. The manufacturer, the roller, the company who made these cigars want you to enjoy the ultimate experience by just enjoying the flavors that these cigars are providing. So you add in, and even infused cigars, they're meant to have certain flavors for those consumers, right?
Of course.
Do not ever dip your cigar in whiskey.
No.
I won't call this person out, not that he'll ever see it. I saw a famous guy dip his cigar in, I believe, was tequila.
I think
And he
so.
said he heard someone do that. And it's just like, it devalues the whole cigar.
Agreed.
So I there's other mistakes you may make as a beginner cigar smoker. But please, for the love of God, do not dip your cigar in anything. Just try to enjoy it as is. If you want to pair it with something, with a coffee, a soda, a beer, whatever, that's fine. But don't dip your cigar in it.
Yes, never do that.
Please.
Never do
There's
that.
nothing much else to say for that. But yeah, do not dip it, please.
Yep. And another tip is to make sure you're watching your ash. So you do want to not ash too often. You kind of want to let that ash build up to allow some oxygen in between where the cigar is lit and the ash. That's important. And you just want to kind of let the ash fall off naturally on your cigar. It's not a longish ash competition. You don't want to keep smoking it to see how far that ash can go and have it fall on your lap, fall all over your buddy. I've had it happen to me many times when I first started, and it's just not enjoyable at all.
You're so smart.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. I try.
Kind of piggybacking off of ashing is another piece of etiquette for beginners is don't stub out your cigar. What I mean by that is don't bash your cigar in the ashtray. For one, you may want to, I don't know, let's say if you smoke it down to here, right? And you want to come back to it, you want a chance to relight it. If you are completely done with it, you just sit it on the ashtray and let it go out on its own. When it's fully out, then you dispose of it. Bashing it is, some say it's a sign of disrespect to the cigar.
Agreed.
Right? It's not a cigarette. You don't bash it and then throw it in, throw it on the side of the road, throw it out the window, throw it in bushes, whatever that may be. Just don't do that. You try to, these people who make these cigars, it's a hobby, right?
Yeah, it's
We're
a
lucky
hobby.
enough to have a job in the industry, but it's a hobby at the end of the day that people love to enjoy. And they're making, some of them making them 1,000 a day.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, some thousands, some many more than that.
Yeah, so you want to really try to respect the craft that is making cigars.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, there's no additives or anything in your cigar, so it will go out on its own, unlike a cigarette, where if you put it down on the ashtray, it'll burn all the way to the filter most likely. So it will go out on its own if you just leave it in that ashtray, and you don't have to do much more than that.
Yeah. This next one is I can't believe we have to say it.
It's almost comical.
People have done it.
Yeah.
I've never done it. Have you?
No, I've never done it before either.
I don't know the reason why people do it, but you want to take it away?
Yeah, you don't want to cut your cigar in half. I know there's some people out there that may be thinking that, you could share your cigar or something if you cut it in half, but one of the prime components of smoking a cigar is you get different flavors within each third of the cigar. So if you're cutting that in half, you're taking out that component of being able to do that. And it also will affect the wrapper. So if you're cutting it in half, it may start to unravel on the side that doesn't have the cap on it, which is just going to negatively affect your smoking experience. It really makes no sense to me. If you're a beginner, you may not know that. I mean, I know there's people that kind of share cigars and other things like that, but we recommend just everyone smoking their own and having your way with it.
And if you're looking, if you're cutting the cigar because you want a smaller cigar, there's a lot more options out there to smoke cigarillos, to smoke Coronas. You could smoke smaller cigars. There's no reason you should be cutting your cigar in half, even if you want to share it with a friend. Like Bobby said, it will do damage to your smoking experience. If you cut the cigar in half and you happen to be the person that has the first and second third of the cigar, you're not going to be able to experience what the cap and the cap and the, I guess, final third, you'd say, of the cigar that will experience it. They'll probably damage the wrapper. It'll damage the components. It might be cut unevenly too.
Yeah, and it could draw differently.
It will definitely draw differently. Yeah. 100% it won't draw correctly. So please, we got to say it, but do not cut your cigars in half, for the love of God.
Spend that extra few bucks and just get another cigar that you both can enjoy.
Yeah. The last tip for beginners when it comes to cigar etiquette. This one was kind of interesting to me. Not that I've ever done this, but I never thought it necessarily was a no-no, but it is do not put your half-smoked cigar in your humidor. Or any storage component you may have for it. Let's say you have cigars come in tubes. Let's say you have a tube laying around. You could put it in the tube and then put it back in the humidor. The most common thing that people do, or that we suggest, is when you're done with the cigar, like I mentioned before, let it go out naturally on its own. Or if you want to ash it, you still have to, even if you ash it, you have to let it go out on its own. Because it's burning inside here. Like, it may look lit here, but it's probably burning up to here,
Yeah, the filler's still burning.
The filler's still burning. So let it sit for, I'd say, up to a half hour, 45 minutes. If you have nowhere else to put it besides your humidor, make sure, like I said, the cigar is cool. It's not burning anymore. It's not hot. Put it in a Ziploc bag, and then you could put it in your humidor. Whether you realize it or not, whether you even smoke, even our cameraman doesn't smoke, but I'm sure he goes home smelling like cigars. You're going to smell it. Like, I go home, if I have a cigar at 10 in the morning, I see my wife at 6, she's like, you smoked today. I was like, well, yeah, I work at a cigar company.
Yeah.
But no, it does linger. It does linger.
Yes.
So you just know that if you want to put it in a Ziploc bag or two, because for this reason, I don't know if you are, you have a bunch of cigars at home, you said, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And in those humidors, there's a bunch of different cigars. Unless do you store your cigars by brand, infused versus regular?
So I won't put my infused cigars with my regular premium cigars, because it does tend to affect the flavors of the other cigars, and it will kind of rub off on those wrappers. So if I do have infused cigars, I may just keep those in their own Tupperware or in a Ziploc bag with a Boveda. But yeah, typically, like Chris was saying, you don't want to have to put that that cigar that you had put out
Smoked, yeah.
back in your humidor,
Because it's going
to negatively affect the other cigars that are in there.
All the other cigars are going to smell like already a half-lit cigar.
Yep. And it may even, lose its flavor.
Yeah.
It may start to go stale. If you have a cigar that you've put out and are just trying to hold on to, it may be more beneficial just to spend that extra money and just buy another cigar, because you're not going to have an enjoyable experience relighting something that's kind of just been sitting around and
The next
growing
day
stale
or
almost.
2 days.
Yeah.
We do recommend, if you are going to try and smoke, if you're going to get into cigar smoking and smoke cigars, if you feel as if it's too much in one sitting, letting it sit on the ashtray. If you come back to it later in the day,
a couple
that's
hours.
fine.
Yep.
Yeah, a couple hours. You might get a little different taste even then in the few hours that, from when let's say you smoked in the morning, had stuff to do in the afternoon, and want to finish it at night. It's gonna taste different for sure.
Definitely.
When you put it back and maybe you go back to it, it's gonna be a whole different smoking experience. So like Bobby said, if you have the luxury or the good fortune of, if you heard about a good cigar and you want to maybe buy 2 of them, a 5-pack, a box, no need to save it. Really, and if you're going to save it, if you really are adamant on saving it, put it in some sort of Ziploc bag,
Yes.
a tube, and then store it away in your humidor, on top of your humidor, whatever that may be. So one more thing that we wanted to talk about today before we wrap up here is cigar lounge etiquette. I believe more than half of cigar smokers, when they're smoking, they're either home, smoking with friends, or they're at a lounge. There is proper etiquette at cigar lounges. I didn't realize until I started in the industry.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to start with one and then I'll go to another, but yeah, what's some cigar lounge etiquette that you try to follow every time you're in a lounge?
Yeah, so some etiquette that I try to follow when I'm in a lounge. When I first started here, I didn't notice that you're not supposed to always bring your own cigars to the lounge. If there is a lounge that offers liquor or other beverages, you kind of want to, if you are bringing your own cigars, make sure that you're spending some type of money in another way to help that business out. You may want to venture into their humidor and buy a few sticks from them if you do have your own cigars that you came with. Again, just to support that lounge, support the business that you're in, keep that lounge up and running. You don't want to bring your own liquor to the lounge unless that's something that you're allowed to if you're part of a club.
Yeah, a lot of them are frowned upon in that.
Yeah, that's
even like I remember I brought a Dr. Pepper to a lounge and like, you can't have that here. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna put it in my book bag because I just got it.
Yeah, you're gonna throw that out.
Then you had to buy something else. I've been to a few lounges where if you have to buy a cigar at the lounge.
Yes.
But then there's complimentary water and coffee.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of interesting. There was one year I was watching like the NBA All-Star game at a lounge, like a year or two ago. So I very rarely smoke like back-to-back cigars, but I was at the lounge for like hours.
That's a multi-smoking day.
It is. So what I did there was like they had complimentary like chips even. They had like snacks, drinks. I made sure I went to the humidor and bought, I think, 2 cigars. And even if I didn't smoke them there, I still bought them and showed support. And,
Yeah, you want to support the lounges that you're smoking at or else they're not going to stay in business.
Yeah.
And we're not going to have anywhere really to smoke, especially in these colder months that we get, where we're at.
Yes. Yeah, those are the 2 main ones that you mentioned, really like being able to, going into a lounge and buying a cigar. There are some places that let you bring cigars in. But like Bobby said, if there's food, if there's beverages, try to, it's not like going to a coffee shop, buying one coffee and then, working on your screenplay for 10 hours, like you want to try to feed into the business because they're letting you sit there, smoke your own cigar sometimes and all that. I would say maybe just some other etiquette is like,
maybe respecting the others around you.
That's what I was going to say. Kind of like just showing some respect. I've never gone to a lounge and not talked to a stranger when I was there.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, cigars bring people together, man.
I brought the, was it Leaf by Oscar where it was wrapped in the tobacco?
Yeah.
I brought that to a lounge one time and some guy was like, oh, it looks like your cigar is messed up. I was like, here's the trick. I showed him smoked. Ended up talking with him. Found out he was like the kicker of the 1994 Penn State Nittany Lions.
Oh, wow.
With Kerry Collins. You remember Kerry Collins?
Yeah.
That like he was the kicker on the team.
Oh, man, that's
I got
awesome.
to talking to him. Yeah, it was great. So you always seem to like, you know, get to meet people who have the same common interest as you, which is cigars.
Yes.
Yeah, just being, I would say just being respectful to the humidor, to the employees in the humidor, the employees in the lounge. I've also noticed, I don't know if this is a really etiquette thing, but if you have questions, I think most people going in, it's split down the middle as well. Half the people going into a humidor or a cigar lounge don't know what they want to get. They're either like, you know, oh, you know, my friend recommended A, B, C, D, or you have people who know what they want, go in, grab it, go to the counter, and it's done, right?
Yes.
But you know, it's not really an etiquette thing. But don't be alarmed if you go in not knowing where to start, right?
Employees are there to help you.
Yeah, going in being like, listen, and they'll ask. If it's a good employee, they should ask you, okay, well, you like this type of drink. Well, then this cigar kind of replicates that. You like this type of drink. Well, then this cigar will replicate that. That's going to, you know, they're there to help you out.
Yeah, and they'll lead you in the right direction of, you know, what cigar you may want to smoke if it's in the morning. If you're a new cigar smoker, maybe something on the lighter side, or if you've been smoking for a while, maybe something on the more full side.
Yep. And if you are sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you are there 4 hours, you know, and you buy one cigar, like I mentioned a little bit before, try to buy 2, you know, just because if you're going to be there for a long time, just show love to the business. That's pretty much, you know, that's the only etiquette I can really think of at a cigar lounge. You want to try to just show respect to the lounge. You know, most lounges are really like, whether it be the design, the cigar selection, the bar selection, it's always a cool atmosphere, right?
For sure.
So just try to show that respect that they're showing you as a consumer.
Yeah, and another thing, just to touch on the respect part, something that I've seen that I have to mention, there's ashtrays all over lounges, so you don't want to steal other people's ashtrays. You don't want to do things like I've seen before, like spitting in ashtrays. You don't want to put your gum in the ashtrays. You don't want to put wrappers in the ashtrays, because at the end of the day, these people got to clean those ashtrays out.
And don't ash on the ground. Like
don't ash on the ground. Like maybe on yourself. You know, that's always a great thing.
But like, there's so many ashtrays, like what you just said, there's so many ashtrays in the like wherever you're sitting, there's at least 2 ashtrays next to you.
Yep.
There's no need to just, you know, do that. Clean up after yourself. Like try to, you know, you got to be 21 and older to smoke, so try to act like an adult.
Yeah, respect
you know,
the lounge.
Yeah, just, you got to respect it.
And you don't want to throw your cigar in a garbage can. Make sure you leave it in the ashtray when you are done, or find a fireproof bin to put your cigars out. Usually if you leave it in an ashtray, most employees will do that for you, so you don't even have to worry about it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was our episode on proper cigar etiquette for beginners. You know, in the comments below, if you have any other questions, please drop them in case we missed something. But you know, it's really that simple when you get into it. Respect the cigar, respect the history of the cigar, respect the lounges. We're big on respect probably because we're Italian. So,
I would say so.
You know,
I would say so. You know,
but no, in all
got that wop in us.
In all seriousness, you know, we hope you found this informative. Like I said, if you have any other questions, please drop them in the comments below, and we'll be able to answer them for you. So, until next time, I'm Chris,
And I'm Bobby.
and thank you for watching another educational piece on Embers and Insights.